from Jerusalem to Jericho, when he fell into the hands of a hurricane and an earthquake and a fire in the forest and a flood and robbers too. They stripped him, they beat him, and they went away, leaving the man half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. Now a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, my heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. Again, my heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. You are my neighbor. You are my friend. Though the world would put that to an end, my heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. Again, my heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. You are my friend. You are my neighbor. You are my friend. Though the world would put that to an end, my heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. One more time. My heart breaks to see your pain. My mind knows what to do. My strength holds your broken body. My soul sees itself in you. So go and do likewise. Go and do the same. Go and do likewise, and do it in Jesus' name. So go and do likewise. Go and do the same. Go and do likewise, and do it in Jesus' name. I'll invite our offering to be collected while we sing God of the Sparrow. God of the sparrow, God of the rain, the first one we'll sing house pets, okay? Because think of what happens to house pets when the whole community is underwater, right? All kinds of things. Sometimes the pets get saved, but sometimes they got to find their own way, right? So the first thing we'll do is pray for house pets. But the next thing I want to do, I want you to raise your hand if you think, I want to pray for this next thing. Next part of the planet I want to pray for. This won't be a people prayer. This is for all parts of creation other than people, okay? So if you think, I want to pray for this, you raise your hand and I'll come listen to what it is we're going to sing. Don't worry about the syllables. We'll squeeze in the syllables as best we can. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for your house pets, for house pets can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat. That's right. The rhythm of your heartbeat. House pets can definitely hear God's heartbeat. Do you have an idea what we should pray for next? Raise your hand if you do. Beaches? Lots of beaches are not going to be places to lie down this week. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for your beaches, for beaches can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat. The rhythm of your heartbeat. What's the next prayer? Trees bending in the wind, fire. Praying for trees. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for your trees, for trees can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat. The rhythm of your heartbeat. The next prayer. Wild animals, not the ones in our homes, but the wild ones, wild animals. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for wild animals can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat, the rhythm of your heartbeat. What's next? Pray for families, absolutely, because they're going to suffer in some of these storms, and sometimes they're going to be just fine. Here we go, families. 1, 2, 3. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for your families, for families can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat. The rhythm of your heartbeat. We'll do the oceans now. Oh, great earth, so green and so blue, this is the promise that I make to you, to care for your oceans, for oceans can hear the rhythm of your heartbeat. The rhythm of your heartbeat. Keep the heartbeat going. The rhythm of your heartbeat. The rhythm of your heartbeat. Just the heartbeat. Keep it going. Boom. Amen. Thank you for your prayers. Let's bring that offering forward and keep this creation unfolding.
Please bless all the gifts that have been given to us this morning. And may we pray that they are used where they're needed most in our church, community, and world. And may we also bless everyone who gave the gift of time this morning and came to join us. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Rick, for that lovely prayer, and Skylar for your presiding. I think we should have her back to preside again, this Skylar, don't you think? Absolutely. Give her a big... So, welcome all of you to our sort of back to church Sunday. Some of you have been here all summer. I've been here all summer. But some of you, how many of you have been away for a little while? On vacation or doing things? Good. So good to have all of you back. And boys and girls, great to have all of you here today as well. And this is a Sunday in which we recognize that lots of you are going back to school this week. Or maybe, how many of you are going to school for the first time this week? Put up your hands. Ah, good for you. Anyone else going back to school for the first time? There are a few adults going to school for the first time too. That's all right. And oh yeah, there's a good man, good fella going back to school as well. So some of you are going back to school for the first time. Some of you are going back to school once again. And so that's a kind of a special time in our life always in this time of year. So this morning, I want to focus on two things for all of us, because it seems to me there are kind of two things going on in the world today that we're all kind of aware of. The first thing I want to talk about is rain. Does that make sense? There's lots of rain happening in the world right now. Not just rain, there's lots of really big storms going on in the world right now, and that's what Rick was talking about in our prayer, and we were praying for different parts of the world. So rain is a big thing, and I want to talk about rain with you this morning. And I also want to focus, though, because lots of you are going back to school, and it's kind of what this Sunday is about too. I want to talk about friendship, okay? I want to talk about rain and friendship. Two things, rain and friendship. Can we all say it? Rain and friendship. Absolutely. And we're going to look, because the Bible talks about rain and friendship, and we're going to figure out how do those two things go together this morning, okay? But the first thing to get us thinking about rain, I think what I'll have is I'm going to have all the kids come into the middle aisle here, okay? So all the kids, I want you to come out into the middle aisle, all right? This is the first thing. Just wherever you are beside your pews, just come out into the middle aisle, okay? That's right. Awesome. So just hang out. Any of you kids hang out in the middle aisle. And some of the kids have gone out and some of the kids are here. So what we're going to do this morning, how many of you have made a rainstorm before? Have you done that? Have you made a rainstorm before? You don't know how to make a rainstorm. It's one of my most fun things. I love to make a rainstorm, okay? So we're going to make a rainstorm this morning, and all of you have to help out with this. So the way we're going to make this rainstorm is we're going to start just the way Rick does when we sort of do our commissioning at the end. So we're going to have this side of this side, so far right side. So 1, 2, and then you folks are right in the middle, okay? 3, 4, and 5. And you sort of figure out where you want to go into that, okay? Okay. So here's the way you make a rainstorm. It's really kind of cool, right? So there are basically 4 kinds of things that we need to be able to do to create a rainstorm. And the first thing we need to do, and we're doing this to just remember all the people who've had lots of rain this last while, right? And are still having lots of rain. So I want you to put your hands together. This is for all of you, right? This is a total participation event. Nobody's allowed not to be doing this, right? Checking this out? Okay. So that's part of creative rainstorm. That's how we start. And then we got to be able to snap our fingers a little bit. It doesn't matter if you're really good finger snappers or not, right? I can do it good with my right hand, but not so good with my left hand, right? That's good, okay. All right. And then we need to do this. Okay, got it? Okay. And then we add something to that. We do this, but we also stomp our feet. Okay? All right, you're getting it. Now, so we got to put all these things together. So what happens is, I'm going to start us off with a motion, and we're going to start with this side of the church, and I'm going to direct you, right? I'll start over here, then over here, and then you folks in the middle, and then you start that, and then you over here, and you over here. So you just keep doing it until we change the motion, okay? Now, after we do this one, we're going to go back to just this, and then we're going to go back to just, and then we're going to go back to just this, okay? You got it? Does that? So it's kind of cool, okay? All right. Ready for this? You're never quite sure how this is all going to turn out, but that's BUC after all. We're faithful. Okay, all right. We're going to start. Okay. The rain's coming. Those are the kinds. Did you hear the rainstorm? Come on up. Let's grab a seat here. I don't know if you saw it, but there were even a couple of umbrellas that came out in church this morning. Absolutely. It was really quite something. Those are the kinds of rainstorms that we kind of like, that come gently, and then they become stronger, and then they move on, and everything is good. But sometimes we don't get really nice, soft summer rainstorms like that. Sometimes, and that's what's going on in different parts of the world right now. How many of you know what's going on in Florida? Yeah, okay, let me just turn this on and you can tell me about that. Hang on a second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what's going on in Florida right now?
Hurricane Irma.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is Hurricane Irma, a big one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Yeah, 5 stars. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really, really bad storm. Now, the Bible has a very famous story about a really, really bad storm. And if you look on the screen, you'll get an idea what story I'm talking about. What story am I talking about? Yeah.
Noah's Ark.
The story of Noah's Ark, yeah? Noah's Ark. So it's the story of Noah's Ark. And the story of Noah's Ark is a real interesting story because it's a story not just about a really, really big rainstorm. It's also a story of how God was trying to look after the earth, and Noah and his family were trying to look after people and the animals. So it's really a story about friendship and caring for one another in the midst of a really bad storm. So I thought this morning, I'm going to tell you the story of Noah and the ark, or the story of the great big Category 10 storm. Do you think there is a Category 10? I don't know if there is or not, but it was a Category 10 storm because it was a storm that covered the whole earth, is what the Bible tells us. And it tells us about what happened in that story. But I'm going to tell you a little variation on this story, okay? How many of you know the story of Noah and the ark? Have you heard that story? Yeah? Okay, some of you know that story. So, can you tell us, just tell us, Emily, a little bit, what happened in that story?
Well, there was going to be a flood, and Noah wanted to save all the animals.
Yep. So he did what?
I forget.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, okay.
Built a huge wooden ship.
Absolutely, huge wooden ship. It must have been bigger than we can possibly imagine, right? And what did he do in that wooden ship then?
He took 2 of every animal and put them in the wooden ship.
Absolutely. Now, in this story, you've got to imagine that huge wooden ship with a great big beam down the middle of it that holds the whole thing together, okay? So I'm gonna share with you this is a little bit of a variation on that story, okay? So just listen, and I think we got another picture for this story now too. So this is there are 2 Paul, can I have the next picture, or John? There are 2 very important characters in this story. Who's down in the bottom left-hand corner? Can you tell me? What do you see in the bottom left corner?
Sharks.
Yeah, there are sharks, but even further, yeah.
The dove and the raven.
The dove and the raven. And they're the key characters in the story. So I'm going to share this story with you, okay? And so just all hunker down. It's going to take just a minute or so, and then I'll talk about the story with you, okay? So this version of the story goes like this. From the beginning, God knew that people would try to act like they were better than their neighbors. Do you ever do that? Do you know people who try to act like they're better than their neighbors? They're kind of saucy and stick their noses up in the air, and I know, you know, right? But honestly, God never expected to have the same problem with the animals. As soon as the animals were created, they started to argue about who had the most beautiful hooves, hair, fur, scales, fangs, or feathers. And you know who the worst of the bunch was? They were, yeah?
The lion?
No, it was the birds. The birds. The birds were disgusting. When the time came for Noah to round up all the animals for the ark, he almost gave up the whole enterprise when he had to settle the birds in their nesting places in the ark. The best nesting spot was on a great wooden beam that ran across the whole length of the ark. And the best place on that beam was right next to the only window in the ark. The ark didn't have many windows, right? Because they didn't want rain to come in, right? So there's just one window. And the best place on that beam was right next to the window. And you know who grabbed that spot right by the window first of all? It was the parrots. It was the parrots. And they would only allow the bright pink flamingos to nest next to them, and the flamingos would only allow the canaries next to them, and they'd only allow the cardinals next to them, and the cardinals would only allow the blue jays next to them. And it went all the way down the beam, the whole beam. The birds were all pecking and squawking about who could get the best place on the beam. At the farthest dark end of the beam nested the raven and the dove. Their feathers were just plain black and white. And so all the other birds who had nice colored feathers, they would have nothing to do with the black raven or the white dove. So after 150 days, they're floating around in the big flood that covered the earth. Everyone was going crazy. Suddenly there was a thud, crunch. The ark stopped rocking in the waves and came to a rest. And with a loud growling and hissing, mooing, croaking, squeaking, and cawing, the animals all said, what did the animals all say?
Let us out of here.
Let us out of here! Can we all say it? Let us out of here! But when Noah opened the window, a cold blast of wind howled in from the black sky, and all the animals turned to their neighbors and said, "You first." Noah decided that a bird should go out and explore. So he asked the parrot, who was sitting next to the window after all, but the parrot just ruffled her feathers and squawked, "Don't be ridiculous, Noah. My feathers are much too beautiful to be messed up in that awful wind. Send the flamingo." The flamingo then stood up and sneered, "It's much too cold out there for me. Send the canary." So it went on, right down the bird beam. All the birds chirping out some reason why they shouldn't have to go out into the dark, stormy weather to figure out if there was dry land. Until finally, with a caw and a whoosh, you know who took off? The raven. It was the raven who took off into the cold, windy night. So the raven took off, and when the raven didn't return for several days, Noah asked the birds if one of them would try to go out and find the raven. But all the birds found new reasons why they couldn't go, all except the dove, who whooshed out the window to try and find her friend the raven in the black and windy sky. After a long flight, the dove found the raven perched in an olive tree on a little tiny island in a great big ocean of water. And after munching on a few fresh olives, the dove said, "Hey, Mr. Raven, let's go back and tell the birds there's land out here." "Our friends," laughed the raven. "Those birds don't care if we ever return. Why don't you just stay here with me, and no bird with colored feathers is ever going to make fun of us again." But the dove said, "I don't think it's fair for us to sit here munching olives while everyone else is cooped up in the ark," and so off she flew. Meanwhile, back at the ark, Noah stood at the little window staring out into the cold night for some sign of either the raven or the dove. The parrot kept pestering Noah. "Close the window, Noah. You're lost. We're cold and you're crazy." But Noah continued to stand at the open window, looking, listening, freezing, and sneezing. Achoo! The dove was lost. Her white wings were dipping closer and closer to the churning black waves, and she felt she couldn't flap her tired wings another flap, when through the sound of the roaring wind, the dove heard a Following the sound, she came to Noah's outstretched hand, and she landed on his hand, and he took her into the nice warm ark. When the dove reported that there was land out there, though, none of the other birds believed her. They all laughed at her and said, "There's no land out there. We're not going out there." But the next morning, do you know what happened? When all the birds woke up, the dove was gone. Her little nest at the end of the bird beam was filled with tears. She had been crying all night because none of the other birds would believe her. "I knew they wouldn't believe you," said the raven to the dove when she returned to the olive tree, which was now on top of a hill on a big island surrounded by a lot less water. "Stay with me and forget about them. Here, have an olive." Do you like olives? Yeah. You like olives? All right, good. Have an olive. "I don't want an olive, but I will take an olive leaf," said the dove. "This will show them that there really is land out there." "Won't you ever learn?" said the raven. "They're too scared to leave the ark." But the dove said, "And you, my friend, you're too scared to leave this island and live with the other birds," as she flew off, a little white speck against the sky. Soon the dove was lost at sea and straining her ears for Noah's "Hurt-choo!" or for a flicker of light from the ark. But all the dove heard was the wind and the waves, the wind and the waves. And then, now get this, suddenly up ahead, the dove saw something very strange. Rising out of the sea was a rainbow. Now, can any of you tell? Look at that rainbow on the screen. Can you tell what's in the rainbow? Can you see it? Yeah?
Birds.
All sorts.
Birds.
Who do you think those birds were?
The birds from the ark.
Absolutely. The rainbow coming up from the ark was filled with all the birds, and it was made by all their colored feathers. The rainbow was chirping. Have you ever seen a chirping rainbow? In fact, the beautiful rainbow was a tower of birds flapping their wings against the strong wind. The parrot was flying up and down the feather rainbow, squawking orders. "Stay in line, you flamingos. Watch out for the hummingbirds, you blue jays. Remember, our friend Noah is sick with a cold, and our friend the dove is lost at sea just because we were too dumb to believe her. So budgie birds, flap those wings." When the two great doors of the ark swung open and all the animals were let out at last, they were greeted by a wondrous sight. A real rainbow was shining in the sky, stretching from the ark at one end to an olive tree on top of a mountain at the other end. That night, before all the birds flew off to their new homes in the new world, they nested together in the olive tree, and on the very top branch were who? Who was on the top branch? Yes?
The dove and the raven.
Absolutely. The dove fell asleep quickly, but the raven busied himself by passing out olives to all his new friends with colored feathers. In the morning, the birds were gone, but the rainbow remained. Oh, isn't that a cool story? Now, were all the birds, were they good friends at the beginning of the story? No. What were they all trying to do at the beginning of the story?
Disintegrate.
Yeah.
Disintegrate the birds without colored feathers.
Yeah. They were all trying to find their own favorite space, and they were all sort of poking fingers at one another, and the birds, the black and white birds, weren't liking them at all, right? They were all trying to be better than each other and have a better spot. But at the end of the adventure, what happened to all the birds at the very end? Do you remember? What happened to all the birds at the very end? Can you tell us? Yeah?
They liked the black and white birds.
Yeah. They all became
Friends.
right? They all became friends. And the thing the Bible tells us is that who are real friends? Who are real friends to us? Yeah.
People who stick together.
People who stick together, right? And people who stick together, what do they do when they're in trouble? What do people who stick together do when they're in trouble?
Help each other.
They help each other, right? So the best friends that we have in life are people who will look out for one another and who will care for one another, right? That's what the Bible says, yeah?
Family.
Yeah, family too. So family is great, and that's what family shows. The best families, good families, help one another in times of trouble. But it's also our church family, and good friends help one another in times of trouble. And that's the thing when we go to school too, just to remember that our real friends aren't the ones who have the prettiest clothes or the smartest or anything else, but they're the people who help us, and we're good friends when we help them. You know what? Paul, down in the States where they had that great big storm in Texas, right? The one that's over now. Hurricane Harvey, right? Paul's got a really neat video that shows us a little bit about how people became friends in Hurricane Harvey. Can we just take a peek at that? Have you got that, John? Can we show it? Let's take a peek.
It's a classic line from the Bible. Cain asking, "Am I my brother's keeper?" In Texas, after Hurricane Harvey, a lot of good Samaritans answered that question with the resounding yes. Dylan was there to see the kindness of strangers and neighbors firsthand.
Strangers coming together under the worst of circumstances. One in need of a hand in a desperate moment, the other helping however they can. With all of Harvey's destructive power, perhaps hope was built on these chance meetings with everyday heroes.
We need your help.
The call went out, and it didn't take long for it to be answered from across the country. Selfless displays of courage, bravery, and heroism on full display. Rising above the misery of the storm, acts of kindness at every turn. These guys know all too well the power of a hurricane.
When Louisiana gets in a bind, when we have problems, Texas responds, and we're not going to leave our brothers behind.
They're with the Cajun Navy, a volunteer group from Louisiana.
The more good you can do, you just hope it passes on.
Where's the truck? Jean Wilkie traveled 200 miles with her family to help.
We bought this raft in San Antonio and came out here, and those rafts are the ones that are going into like cul-de-sacs where our outboards can't get in.
Jean's not alone. So many people came in to help rescue people.
We're having to make rescues through roofs and everything else. People are up on the roofs. We got airboats. We got guys coming helping us, so doing the best we can.
Those ladies asked if we could give them a ride. We just said, yeah, no problem, you know. We're no heroes or anything. We're just here to help people, you know.
Thank you!
And then there are the neighbors who formed a human chain to help a Houston mom get to safety when she went into labor during Harvey. As flood survivors began arriving at evacuation centers, more heroes emerged.
As soon as you get in register, tell me you want to see the doctor, okay?
At the George R. Brown Convention Center, Cynthia Rodriguez, a nurse, came to volunteer.
The kids are breaking my heart. That's what's breaking my heart, the kids. And the lost look of the elderly.
Victoria White and friends just wanted to make a tough situation a little better by lifting the spirits of evacuees, singing of glory. Others took families into their homes.
We're able to help somebody. That is really important for us.
And private businesses opened their doors too, like Gallery Furniture, turning its showroom into a shelter for hundreds.
Whatever we can do to help these people in a time of need, that's what we're going to do.
Real moments with real people, performing acts of humble heroism under the toughest circumstances.
Dylan, for all the devastation that you saw out in Texas and Louisiana, it's moments like those.
So there you have it. That's what the Bible and what Jesus and what the story of Noah tells us too, how the raven and the dove learned that the best way to become friends is when we help. Cool. Yeah. Are you going to remember that version of Noah's Ark? Awesome. All right. Off you go to your seats, and I think and hope you have a wonderful year this year at school or at preschool or just with your friends.
Your love pours upon us like a sun shines a blessing. Your grace will sustain us like a star-studded skies. Your spirit shines o'er us, renewing our spirits with courage and faith. Like a bird in free flight, by windows around us, like a wind in the forest that breathes life among us, like a phoenix that's rising from ashes around us, renewing our spirits with vision and grace. Like a pillar of cloud, you promise to guide us. Like a bright fiery bush, you come to speak to us. Like a calming breeze, your spirit breathes in us, renewing our spirits with loving embrace. Like a lover's caress, your spirits revive us. Like a song of the soul, you come to be with us. You heal our desires, heal and restore us, renewing our spirits, the future to face.
I invite you now to join me in prayer to center in whatever way feels comfortable for you. Loving God, you have called us to be together in this place on this September day, that we might celebrate with thanksgiving in our hearts summer's many, many gifts. Love-filled reunions, the joy of travel, nature's embrace when our footsteps have led us to walks on a beach, throughout our neighborhoods on warm evenings, on winding paths shaded by welcoming green and tall trees. As the approach of autumn draws near, filled with new possibilities, yet to be woven into autumn's familiar rhythms, we also offer gratitude for the strength and the support that embraced us during summer's hard moments. Moments when an olive branch was extended and a rainbow took shape within our hearts. Moments when a healing presence soothed our grief. Moments of medical care when our bodies hungered for restored balance. We are so very grateful, loving God, for this faith community, our olive tree, in which the different colors of our lives, our families, and our neighborhoods might find moments of rest and renewal, as did the birds of David's story. Moments of rest and renewal to ready us for the ministry task ahead within our church and in the world. Much is on our hearts this day, Holy One, and yet we see rainbows everywhere, if only we look. firefighters, rescuers, and caregivers of every kind become everyday heroes, creating rainbows filled with the deep hues of compassion. Rainbows for hurting ones as they move through deep waters and devastated villages, towns, and cities in search of the desperate and the stranded four-leggeds to take them to safe lands and to Hart havens. As they move to the front lines of a fire now known as the Beast, or through flooded territories, or within the ruins of an earthquake, bless them, each one, as they witness and work toward glimpses of your reign among us. And for all who are traumatized this day by fire, flood, hurricane, or earthquake, may their prayers be answered. May strength enable them to endure. And may ease eventually come to their hearts as they move through terrible journeys. May rainbows hover, many rainbows hover, bringing restored hope to their lives. May it be so. Amen.
A longtime member of our congregation, Basil Miller, died this week. A celebration of his life will be held for him this afternoon at the Royal Conservatory of Music at 2.
Skylar, I have one other announcement.
Uh-oh.
Just a couple of things we wanted. So Basil Miller, who Skylar just mentioned, is a longtime member of this congregation. Some of you may know Basil, and it didn't get into the paper this week. So for those of you who know Basil, please feel free to attend that celebration of his life at the Royal Conservatory at 2 p.m. And also just wanted to lift up for you today too that our own Jen Johnson, her father passed away this past week as well. So I invite you all to hold Jen in your hearts and prayers, and her whole family as well. Thanks so very much. Skylar, back to you. Thank you.
And our intergenerational celebration has come to an end. May we continue to celebrate each other in the days to come. And we invite everyone to join us up the stairs to the gym for pancakes and sausages. And sign all your kiddos up for Sunday school, and let's prepare for an amazing year ahead. Thanks.
Goodness and mercy shall follow me all my days. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all my days. And I shall dwell in your house, O God, my whole life long. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all my days. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all my days. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all my days. And I shall dwell in your house, O God, my whole life long. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow